The boat drifted in the middle of a dark, stormy ocean. Only the sound of waves and the wind filled the night. Suddenly, from beneath the boat, a thud, thud, thud echoed. Alyssa screamed, "Is something hitting the boat?" Jack tried to calm everyone. "That's impossible, we're in deep water." But the sound kept coming, louder and stronger. Then the engine died. Lights flickered. The boat was swallowed by darkness. Tom shouted, "What the hell is happening?" Mike grabbed a flashlight, shining into the water. He froze. "Guys, look at the water." The sea wasn't black anymore. It was dark red, like thick blood mixed in. A shadow moved under the boat. Lucas whispered, "That's not a fish." Suddenly, boom. The boat shook violently. Alyssa screamed. Tom fell to the deck. Mike grabbed the railing to stay upright. From the water, a long black hand emerged. The fingers were grotesquely long, nails sharp. It grabbed Lucas, pulling him under. Everyone watched in horror. Then from the water, a faint whisper. "Help me!" Alyssa cried. "That's Lucas." Mike shook his head. "No, it's a trap, it's not him." One hand became two, then dozens. All black, rotting, twisted. Tom stepped back, trembling. What are these things?" Jack whispered, "They're not human." Suddenly, from beneath the boat, a giant shadowy face emerged. Two glowing eyes, a wide, unnatural smile. The water around the boat began to churn violently. Something alive, something hungry had awakened. The massive shadow under the water rose higher. It was enormous, far bigger than anything they had ever imagined. The smaller hands and figures began circling the boat, watching, waiting. Mike's hands shook as he tried to hold the flashlight steady. "They're everywhere," he whispered. Jack grabbed his flare gun. "Stay back." The shadow moved closer. Its glowing eyes locked on the boat's occupants. The water itself seemed to boil around it. Alyssa clung to Mike, trembling. I can hear him, Lucas." Mike shook his head. "No, it's not him. It's just pretending." Suddenly, the shadow lunged. Fast, terrifyingly fast. Tom swung a metal rod, hitting one of the smaller creatures. It screeched, a wet, high-pitched, inhuman sound. But more hands and shapes climbed onto the boat, relentless. Jack fired a flare. The light lit the water red. One creature burned, screaming, but 10 more appeared in its place. Alyssa screamed, "We're going to die." The boat creaked under the weight of dozens of hands pulling, grabbing, slamming. It began to tilt dangerously. Mike grabbed Tom and pulled him toward the back. "We have to move now." Suddenly, a voice echoed across the water. Static first, then a whisper. "Join us." The radio died. No signal, no hope. The shadow beneath the boat pulsed. Closer, closer. It was learning, testing, toying with them. Alyssa's eyes widened in horror. "They're inside my head." Mike tried to pull her back. She turned toward the edge, her eyes black. "Let me go," she whispered, her voice broken and hollow. Mike screamed, "No, don't." The creatures climbed faster. The massive shadow loomed over them, water dripping from its monstrous frame. It opened its mouth, vast, impossibly deep, filled with darkness. Then it spoke. Not aloud, but inside their minds. "You came into our water. Now you stay." Jack grabbed a fuel canister. Mike's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." Jack nodded grimly. "It's the only way to survive. At least some of us might." He poured fuel across the deck, careful to avoid the trapped victims. The shadow watched, its many glowing eyes blinking. Jack lit a match. The flames exploded across the boat. The creatures shrieked, retreating into the boiling, red-tinted water. The sea host cracked and split. Fire raged across the deck. Mike barely held on. As the last creature recoiled into the depths, the boat began sinking. The ocean swallowed the fire, the wood, the shadows. The next morning, the Coast Guard found wreckage floating miles away. Burned wood, twisted metal. No survivors. One officer reported something terrifying. Wet handprints on the pieces of the wreckage, as if the creatures had climbed back onto the fragments, watching, waiting. And even today, ships report strange sounds under the water, voices calling for help. Sometimes familiar voices, sometimes the voices of those lost. If you ever hear a call from the dark ocean, know this: you're already marked. The ocean was dead silent. The fire from the sea host's deck was gone, leaving only smoke and debris floating in the dark water. But the nightmare was far from over. From the depth, something massive rose, far larger than anything they had imagined. The water bulged violently, as if something ancient and unstoppable had awakened. The smaller creatures retreated, clearing the way. A single, monstrous shadow emerged, its surface rippling like black liquid. Its eyes, far too many, blinking in the darkness, glowing faint red. Mike could barely breathe. It's enormous," he whispered. The young man, the one in the front of the boat, tried to steady himself. Every instinct screamed, run, escape, survive. But there was nowhere to go. The creature leaned closer. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, and inside, nothing but darkness. It spoke, not with sound but in their heads. "You came into our water. Now you belong to us." The smaller hands began pulling at the survivors again. Alyssa's eyes, black and empty, turned toward Mike. "Come join us," she whispered, her voice hollow, broken. Mike lunged, trying to grab her. But the weight of the creatures and the force of the water were overwhelming. Jack grabbed the last flare gun. "This is it," he said. "If we don't do something now, none of us will survive." He fired the flare at the massive shadow. It screamed, a wet, horrifying, inhuman sound, but it barely flinched. More creatures climbed aboard. The boat began to crack violently. Wood splintered under the weight of the creatures. Mike realized the only chance was fire. Jack handed him the last fuel canister. They poured it across the deck, careful not to burn each other. Jack lit a match. The flames exploded instantly. The creatures screamed, retreating momentarily into the dark, boiling water. But the largest creature didn't leave. It towered above the flames, its glowing eyes staring into their souls. The water around it churned violently. It was patient, waiting. Then the first survivor, Lucas, or what remained of him, appeared on the edge of the boat. Eyes black, skin pale, mouth twisted in a horrific smile. "Join us," he whispered, moving toward them. Mike and Jack fought to push him back. Alyssa, now fully possessed, lunged into the fire. Screams pierced the night. The massive creature finally moved. It surged upward, water exploding in all directions. Its mouth opened wider, aiming to swallow the remaining survivors whole. The flames reached its body. It screamed, a sound like hundreds of people screaming at once. Then, with a final, earth-shaking motion, it plunged back into the depths. The survivors, barely alive, clung to splintered wood. The sea host was gone. The ocean swallowed everything. The aftermath. The next morning, the Coast Guard found fragments of the boat drifting. Burned wood, twisted metal, and wet handprints scattered across the debris. No survivors, no bodies. But reports kept coming. Ships far off the coast reported. Strange sounds beneath the water. Whispering voices calling for help. Dark shadows following their vessels. and sometimes at night, when the ocean is calm. If you listen closely, you can hear the faint, hollow voice. Join us, join us. Some say the creatures are still there, waiting, watching, patient, hungry, and anyone who dares step into their waters is already marked.